Welcome to A Girl in Love with Tech podcast. My name is Rachel Irabor. I'm a Microsoft MVP, a Power Platform developer, and a Dynamics 365 CRM developer. This podcast is streamed live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and also my YouTube channel. So don't forget to follow and subscribe. Thank you. And our special guest for today is Scott. So the first time I saw Scott was in London, where he was presenting on Microsoft AI, which was amazing. I was looking from a very far distance. I was like, okay, wow, this is awesome. And I would definitely love to talk to Scott concerning public speaking. Hi, Scott.
Hi, how are you? I'm tweeting right now that we're live
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So if you can introduce yourself so that we can know more about you.
Sure. My name is Scott Hanselman, and I am in Portland, Oregon. I work at Microsoft. Right now, I'm the VP of Developer Community for the Developer Division. And I've always worked and lived in Portland. So all the work that I've done for the last 15 years has been remote.
Oh, wow.
Before this, I've worked at companies like Intel and Nike. And I also was a professor at two state universities here in my state of Oregon. So I'm kind of a professor-minded person, like a teacher type person.
That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. And you have a wonderful years of experience. Yeah, it's really awesome.
Uh, yeah, I've
And
been around a long time, I think.
yeah, a lot. Yeah, thank you. And if you're listening to this podcast, if you have any questions, don't forget to just pop your question. And especially if you're not hearing me clearly, please, please let me know. Thank you. And I think the next question I want to ask you, especially for our listeners, what is public speaking?
Well, so what we're doing right now would be an example
Yeah,
of public speaking. And I think that in a world with social media, with Twitter and YouTube, and everyone can turn on their webcam and suddenly start speaking, we're seeing that everyone is speaking to the public and in public. And I think that the challenge for folks like that are to not just turn the microphone on and talk.
yeah,
Like, do you need a plan? Like, you made a plan for this podcast. You wrote down
yes.
questions, you did research. Don't you feel like people just turn on their microphones and start talking and then call it public speaking?
I think for me, it's public speaking because with the way I started my journey in tech, so it's definitely public speaking. Yeah,
Yeah, I think though
definitely.
that wouldn't you say, Rachel, that some folks are more organized than others, and that speaking, when we say speaking fluently, we're not talking
Yeah,
about English. We're talking about speaking without saying
yeah,
And
true,
if
true.
you and I were having a chat right now, and you were trying to ask me questions, and well, like like basically what I've been trying to say is like that is showing that my thoughts are not clear. So
Yeah,
we can learn how to
yeah,
speak with fluency and
yeah.
express ourselves. And I'm sure that you've learned that in your time as a public speaker.
I think I'm still learning. Like I think the email I sent to you, I told you that I'm actually still learning, and definitely, yeah,
Oh,
definitely going to get over the
I am
Yeah,
learning as well. I'm learning as well. That actually can bring us to our first tip. If you
yes,
feel an
definitely.
if you feel an
And
coming,
I
you can
think
just pause.
another question I want to ask, I don't know if it's my network. Okay.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So another question I want to ask is your personal experience with public speaking, because I know you have started for a very long time with speaking and speaking at different events. So what is your personal experience?
Well, so I started presenting and speaking publicly at a local users group. So here in
Okay.
Oregon, in my home state of Oregon, we would have 20 or 30 engineers that were
Yeah.
interested in a topic get together for lunch or dinner. We'd have a
Okay.
meal, and then we'd bring a projector, and then we would present on a topic for the day. And it might only be a 20 or 30-minute talk, but that
Yeah.
got me started. That's called
Well,
working the small room. You do 10
yeah.
people, 20 people, and then you
Yeah.
work up to a bigger room, maybe a local code camp or a local large event. And then from there,
Yes.
a bigger event, a regional event, a national event, an international event.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I think what you said with starting with a meetup where you have like a small group of people is actually amazing because I can give an example. Last year, I'm actually still working on my public speaking, but I decided that this year I want to speak more at physical events. I was speaking on like visual events, the way we are speaking right now.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, I want to make sure to work on being able to speak physically. And I was kind of scared, like, okay, how am I going to stand and speak to people where I'm not really used to it? I normally just speak online. So we started a meetup here in Malta. I currently live in Malta.
Hmm.
So we started a meetup here in Malta, and I started presenting. Like there are not much there are not much people, but being able to stand in the stage and present made it easier for my presentations this year. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
How
awesome.
big are the groups in Malta?
We have just most times 7 people, 8 people, 10 people in the meetup. Yeah,
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Sometimes people will say, why should I give a talk if there's only 10 people? Why should I
yeah,
start a blog if there's only 2 people? That's two
yeah,
more than you would have if you were talking to yourself,
yeah, sure,
right?
definitely.
Like that's a benefit.
Yeah,
So you're helping, a dozen people or more regularly.
yeah,
And you're also building community, whether it be in Malta or on another country or whoever is listening from wherever they are. They can start a
yeah,
user group today with a
yes,
small group of people. It can just be a study group because a study group can become a user group and a
yeah.
user group can become a conference.
Yeah, definitely. Step by step process. Yeah,
Exactly.
and there's something you mentioned that I'm definitely curious about.
Hmm.
You mentioned about speaking in a group of 30 people, like starting a step by step process and then speaking at international events. How did you have anything like stage fright
That's an
at the
interesting
beginning?
one. That's an interesting question
Yeah,
because what is stage fright? I think I'm very intentional and very deliberate in how I do things.
okay.
So
Yeah,
I'm trying to listen to my body and what it's telling me.
okay.
So we can just label it and say that's stage fright, and this person has stage fright, and that person doesn't have stage fright. But we can
Yeah,
also kind of ask ourselves, why am I afraid right now? Am I afraid I'm going to fail? Am I
yeah.
afraid I'm going to be embarrassed? Am I afraid someone is going to raise their hand and say, that's a lie? That's not true, right? Like those are
Yeah,
all questions. Stage fright is the body also sending itself energy.
yeah,
The feeling of butterflies in your chest and in your stomach is saying, we got this. So if
yeah,
you listen and you say, all right, my body is giving me energy, it may be nervous energy, but it's energy.
yeah,
I can be
yeah,
present in the moment and I can succeed because of that energy. And that's how I like to think about it. It's a very positive and intentional way of thinking about things, but it helps me get through those moments.
yeah, definitely, definitely. That's a very good tip, and yeah, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
there's one question that I have gotten a lot when spoken about like talking about public speaking, presentation. I've seen a question where somebody asked me like, "What is the reason? Why should I work on improving my public speaking and presentation skills?"
That is a
Yeah,
very good question. I think that people don't realize that being clear of thought has a lot of
yeah,
value beyond just giving a great YouTube discussion,
yeah,
right? It
yeah.
helps you make yourself understood at work, in your
Okay.
family, and in your relationships. It
Yeah,
also is a muscle. This is a muscle that needs to be exercised, right? So you and I
yeah,
are not only sharing our background and our advice right now, but we're also exercising our muscle, and we will be better. I will be
yeah,
better after this talk, right?
yeah. Yes.
Because I have talked with you and thought about what I'm going to say and decided that this is what I should say and it's a good idea or it's not a good
Yeah,
idea. For
yeah,
someone to say, why should I bother doing
yeah.
public speaking is a way of saying, well, why should I be a good communicator at all? And that's not helpful.
Yeah. No, definitely no. No. Not helpful. And I think I want to relate it more to maybe like careers and jobs.
Mm,
Like there's something you just pointed out, where you were explaining. You said it helps us communicate clearly, especially at our workplace, because most times we might have to like do a presentation of what we have done,
hmm.
or we are trying to speak to our co-workers, or we are given an opportunity to actually present what is happening in the company. So there's one thing I want to ask to make it relate to people more is how can public speaking help help us in our current role, no matter the career stage we are. Either we are just starting our career, either we're just starting our career or we are already professionals in our career.
Yeah. I think that when you make yourself known as a clear
Yeah.
communicator to your bosses, it
Okay.
also helps you understand the topic better. You've
Yeah.
taught classes before, you've done workshops, you've taught people Power
Yeah.
Platform, and when you're
Yeah.
doing that, don't you feel like you're now better? Because as the
Yes.
teacher, you prepare more so that you
Yeah.
might
Sure.
teach. So
Yeah.
when we make presentations like this, we become better at the topics. So I'm still learning C sharp, even though I've known C sharp for 20 years. I'm
Oh,
I'm always learning new things because I'm trying to make myself better understood and more clearly,
yeah.
expressing my thoughts.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. We learn every day. Learning is never ending. Yeah, learning is never ending. And it's very, very important to work on your public. If you are listening, it's very important to work on your public speaking skills and also on your presentation. Me, I'm not so good with, especially with creating slides. I'm very bad with slides. So, yeah, those things are very important. And another question I have to ask is, how can one, because a lot of times you speak about public speaking, you speak about presentation, but
Mhm.
how can one get started? Like, how can I work on my public speaking and presentation skills?
I think that people don't realize that, of course, anyone can start a YouTube, anyone can start a
Yeah,
podcast for effectively no money. I think
yeah,
the
definitely.
problem is that we compare ourselves to others and then we give up too quickly,
Yeah,
right? Maybe only 10 people are listening right now, maybe 100, who knows? But if
yeah.
someone were to go and look at our number of viewers and say, well, Rachel and Scott only talk to this many people, they should quit. That's nonsense, right?
No, definitely nonsense. Yeah,
I did 100 podcasts before anyone cared. A
yeah.
hundred,
Wow,
right? How many
100.
races? Oh yeah, I've done over 950 podcasts, but the first
Wow.
100, no one cared. And I think we compare ourselves to people on Twitter and social media too much. And you go, oh, that person over there, they're asking weird JavaScript questions and they have 20,000 followers. I should just quit,
Yeah,
right?
especially,
Comparison is the thief of joy.
yeah, especially when they are not seeing improvements, especially
Mhm.
in this example, a YouTube video, they are not seeing improvements in their views. Yeah. I think it's kind of
Exactly.
discouraging, but you should just be motivated, like, hi, 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 hi. You should just
You,
be, yeah,
you should also understand that it might just take one person. You might be one person you're going to talk to, and they're going to say, wow, I stayed up late that night. I saw Rachel and Scott,
yeah,
and that was amazing. You're up late right now working because you're talking
yes,
to me, right? What time is it in
yeah.
Malta? Like 11 or 12 at midnight?
It's actually 11:15.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yes,
This is the
definitely.
grind. You're in the grind. You're in the middle of the grind, Rachel.
Yeah, yeah, yes, I am. And I think I can actually give an example of myself to concerning public speaking.
Hmm.
Like I mentioned, when I started my journey into tech, I was actually very shy. I had anxiety, especially when speaking to you now. My body will be shaking. I will not be able to speak clearly. But it's different now because then I noticed that, okay, I had these weaknesses. I'm not a very good public speaker. And I thought, okay, what's the best way to actually work on this? What's the best way to actually work on myself to improve myself? And I thought, okay, what's the best way? One of them is YouTube. I started a YouTube channel, which is this YouTube channel now. I started a YouTube channel and I also started a podcast. And I think the first thing I did first was actually holding Twitter spaces. And that helps a lot. Yeah, so definitely you can start from anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, you can definitely start from anywhere. And I think I've said it before, but there's a question I want to ask. Like, how does public speaking helps us personally, apart from career wise?
I think that it is a healthy exercise of the brain. I think
Okay,
that it helps you better understand the topic that you're speaking on. I think
okay,
also in a time of, post COVID or kind of post COVID. Hey,
yeah,
there's a friend. I just see a friend on the chat show up from Atlanta. Hello.
yeah,
I think that public speaking exercises the brain and the body and also lets us be more social in a time when we've all forgotten how to talk to humans, right?
yeah, sure.
We stick at home all the time. You go out, hang out, like you don't, we seem to have forgotten how to be human. There's actually an
Yeah.
interesting thing I want to ask you, Rachel. Are you
Okay,
familiar with the theory of the third place? Have you ever heard that
no,
term?
No, I think this is the
Okay.
first time.
So
Yeah.
this is a theory. It's a psychological theory that says that for
Okay.
humans to be healthy and fully formed, we need three places. You need
Okay.
home, work, and a
Yeah.
third place. The third
Okay.
place might be church. It could be a
Yeah.
bar. It could be your friend's house. It could be a club. It could be a
Yeah.
skateboard park. It could be a user group or a YouTube.
Yeah.
Three places: home, work, and then
And
community.
the third
Right?
place. Yeah. Community. Yeah.
Exactly. So here's
Yes.
the question, though, for the next generation, for young people, for folks that have been stuck at home, for people who are chronically online. What do
Yeah.
you do if home is on the videos on Teams,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Work is also remote, and
Yes.
then the third place is also remote. Is
Yeah.
that healthy? So I think public
Not
speaking is an
really.
opportunity to go
Yeah.
outside and talk to
Yes.
humans.
Yeah. And also, apart from talking to humans, even online speaking too helps. But I
Mhm.
think being like a face-to-face conversation, a face-to-face, like a physical event, yeah, we have more physical touch and it actually gives you more confidence too. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's important.
Yeah, definitely. And if you are listening, if you have any questions to ask Scott, please feel free to ask your questions. He's here to answer all questions you have concerning public speaking because Scott is so amazing. I think the when I listened to you in London, you had I love the way you actually speak, the way you have your presentation. It looks more like a discussion than a presentation. It's absolutely amazing.
That is very
Yeah,
flattering. Thank you. I was glad to give that presentation in London.
yeah,
I try to give those talks uh, and give a little bit of something for everyone. Uh,
yeah,
there's a little bit of church there. You
yeah,
may have noticed there's a little bit of comedy. There's a little bit of theater.
yeah,
There's a little bit of Professor Scott. I want to be a fully formed human as
yeah.
opposed to just a PowerPoint. I don't want to sit there and read my PowerPoints.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think there's something I'm curious about to ask you, especially with the way you give your presentation. Like, how did you get to that point? Yeah,
One of the things that's challenging is that when you look at someone who is good at something, whether it be
yes,
Simone Biles or whether it be an athlete or an actor, and you say, "Wow, you're just so gifted. How did you get to that point?" The answer is
yeah,
almost always practice and patience and a long time, a lot of work.
yeah,
Sometimes it feels like people don't want to put in that work. So,
yeah.
here I am. I've been doing this for 32 years.
Wow.
And the answer is my kind of inclusive answer is to stay in tech, take every opportunity that you can get. I'm
Yes,
here because I wasn't, chased out of tech. I
yeah,
don't, I want you to be here in 10 years and 20 years. I want you
yeah.
to be a guest on the next Rachel's podcast. And then they say, Rachel Irabor, how have you been on YouTube for 20 years? It's an amazing career. Tell us about it. And you're going to say,
Yeah,
it's a lot of hard work. And I was staying up until midnight talking to random
yeah,
people in Oregon. And
yeah,
and I did it every week for a year, right? And then they're going to
yes,
say, well, Rachel, I don't want to put the work in. It's too hard. And you're going to
yeah.
say,
You
well, you have to
definitely have.
work.
Yeah, you definitely. I think and consistency too is very important too.
Hey,
Yeah,
Marlene Mangami just showed up. She
yeah,
is in London right now. She just moved from Zim.
yeah. And I saw her post on Twitter. Congrats.
Yes, Marlene
Yeah,
just joined Microsoft as a Python advocate. We're very blessed to have her there. Great
yeah. I saw her
example of
post.
someone. This is a great example. Let's use Marlene as an example.
Yeah,
Talented speaker, right? Talented teacher, but
yeah,
also quietly grinding, doing work, working on committees, moving things forward, not always
yeah.
public work. I think there's a lot
Yes,
of people who are on Twitter, who are on social media presenting a face, but also
yes.
forget that a lot of work has to happen quietly when the cameras are not
Sure.
on.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I think like what you just pointed, you have to work on yourself, not just for the gram. Yeah.
Don't just do it for the gram. Don't do it for the
Yeah.
likes. So many people
Yeah.
out there are doing that. And I guess let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I'm an old person and you're a younger
Yeah.
person, right? I'm
Yes.
later in career. You're a little earlier in your career, although you have quite a bit of experience in the space and you're a Microsoft
Yeah.
MVP. But I want to point out, let me ask you this. is it bad for someone who's later in career to tell an earlier in career person, you got to do the work, you got to stick in there. We want you to be technically resilient.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing for me to say?
Definitely no. It is not a bad thing. It's actually a good advice. Yeah, definitely a good advice.
Would you say though you've had challenges? I mean, you're in another time zone. You might have bandwidth issues, right? You might interact with people differently based
Yeah,
on your age, your gender, your identity, your all the different things that make up our style, that is our identity.
yeah.
Are there any? Have you had any challenges where people didn't think you were an expert?
I think no, most times it's more of imposter syndrome. Yeah,
Imposter
and
syndrome.
yes, and I think the community is amazing. You
Mhm.
just have to reach out to people like the way I reached out to you,
Yeah.
and you just talk to people freely. There's actually there's no difference there. I think it's more of imposter syndrome than anything else.
That's a really
Yeah.
great point. Do you know that? Did you feel alone when you have imposter syndrome? Did you think you were the only one with imposter syndrome?
I think when I started my journey into tech, I had that feeling that I was the only one. But when I started seeing posts of people online where they talked about imposter syndrome, people who are already 15 years into their careers,
Mhm.
and they were talking about how they feel like an imposter being in their role, I was like, okay, wow, this I'm not the only one. Yeah,
Yeah, that's really important. I have felt like that as well. I feel like that even
yeah,
sometimes at work. I think that I personally go back and forth between I am so good at my job
yeah,
and on some day, like on a Monday, and
yeah.
then another day I'll be like, I don't know why they even let me work here. You know?
Yeah. Imposter syndrome is like it just
Yeah.
comes from nowhere, sweeps in.
Maybe put our
Yeah.
names back down for folks that might be joining us
Okay.
on the pod just now.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
I do
fine.
definitely feel like that sometimes because like sometimes I'm like, oh man, this was an amazing day. I'm the best,
Yeah.
and then other days I'm like, I'm gonna get fired tomorrow. God,
And I think today is a perfect example of imposter syndrome for me. In the morning, I was feeling really down. Like I
Oh,
was not happy. Yeah, I was feeling really down. I had like imposter syndrome. I was doubting myself a lot. And this evening, I was like, okay. I was like everywhere. I was like, okay, this is different. Yeah, so definitely. You just have to. I think one thing too is that you just have to know how to overcome it.
yep.
And there's one thing I've recently started practicing, especially with imposter syndrome. What is the cause of the imposter syndrome? And I think the cause most times is our fears and our maybe we're thinking, okay, I'm not good at this thing. Maybe somebody's thinking that I'm this, I'm that. So you have to first of all figure out what the issue is, what is making you have that imposter syndrome. So if you're thinking so much about what that issue is and you're not trying to fix it, it's definitely going to be coming back and it's definitely going to make you feel down that you
Hmm.
don't want to do anything. You're like, okay, let me just sleep. Let me do this. Let me do that. There's no need pursuing my goals. There's no need pursuing the things I want. So when you figure it out that, okay, I've seen that I'm not learning much. I'm not learning much. So how can I fix this? I can fix this. I can fix this by building and I can also fix this by learning. Yeah, so
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that's a very healthy attitude, and I want to call out something else that you're doing that's important because you might
Yeah,
be doing it and not realizing it. Is you're being intentional, you're
yeah,
being deliberate, and you're being present because sometimes you can get in your head, you can get
yeah,
stuck, but it is in your power to go, you know, I am supposed to be here. I am
yeah,
doing a good job.
yes.
And, and if you make a mistake, if you do something wrong, you can say, well, I'll do better tomorrow.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Folks in the
It,
chat are appreciating it here. I see Luella, who I actually saw in person just a couple of days ago,
yeah,
relating to your comments of imposter syndrome. Luella calling that out. Thank you so much. I actually
yeah.
saw her in in person. And we have a question from Thomas, if that's okay.
Okay, sure. So his question is, what tips do you have to keep your audience attention till the end of your session? I think I don't know that.
That's a great question. So
Yeah.
I look at a presentation as being both educational and being entertaining. So I call it
Okay.
edutainment,
Yeah.
right? I want to
Yeah.
edutain. And in doing that, I consciously think about the beats. So let's imagine a 1 hour talk. So I'm taking up this
Okay.
much space on the screen. Okay. So where's
Yeah.
my arm here? Here we go.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
about this much time. What's going to happen at 30 minutes?
Okay.
How you have to put on your empathy hat? What is the audience thinking? What does the audience feel?
Yeah.
30 minutes in, are they bored?
Okay.
Are they, this is really dragging. So is there a
Yeah.
demo that's going to pop that you can put at the middle? Is there a thing that
Okay.
you can say at the middle? Is there multiple acts, like act 1, act 2, act
Yeah.
3? So over a
Yeah.
60-minute talk, what I like to do is either have 6 10-minute points,
Okay.
like 6 bulleted list, or
Yeah.
10 6-minute points. How many points? And
Okay.
then as I move through time, I go back on them and I reinforce. Those are called
Okay.
callbacks. So I'll
Wow.
go and I'll design a system. Actually, let me see if I can actually draw on the screen here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Do you mind
Yeah.
if
It's okay,
I
please.
try
Yeah,
to do
please draw.
something here? All right, let's
Yeah.
try a draw here. I'm going to go and open up a whiteboard.
Okay.
Actually, we can try something. This is video podcast, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. Is there audio too? Because I'll have to describe as well.
Yeah. Is that yet too?
There is audio too.
So,
So some of us are
yeah.
not actually seeing what I'm doing. Give me 1 second. Let me look for my notebook. 1 second. Scott is
Okay,
running and looking for his notebook right now.
sure. Okay.
Here it is.
Yeah.
All right. I'm
Okay.
back. So what I do is I think intentionally about the story arc. Think about a presentation like it's almost like a short story that you're
Okay.
building, and you're trying
Yeah.
to tell, you're trying to tell someone something. You also have to ask yourself, and this is a tough one, am I
Yeah.
selling something? And
Okay.
that's an uncomfortable question, particularly for folks
Yeah.
in DevRel, because nobody likes to be a salesperson. No DevRel person's like, yeah, I'm a salesperson. But you are selling something. Doesn't mean that people have to buy, but you might be selling excitement. You might be
Yes.
selling fun, right? I
Yes.
love Ryan is agreeing with us in the chat here. He's saying that he likes to
Yeah.
structure talks like a story. Love
Yeah.
that. That's exactly what you want to do. So what I'm going to
Yes.
do, I'm going to actually share my screen here. I'm using an e-ink display
Yeah.
that's called a
Okay.
Remarkable. I'm not sure if you've ever seen
Uh-huh.
one of these before. These are great.
No, I haven't. And it
It's
looks really nice.
basically, yeah, it's like a funny looking
Yeah.
iPad.
Yeah.
And I will, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with
Okay.
you. And
Yeah.
then for folks
Sure.
that are on the podcast, what we'll go and do is we will
Okay.
we'll
Just add that.
describe what we're doing at the same time. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to share actually the wrong thing there. Thanks for your patience, friends,
Yeah.
because I'm messing up. I know that you didn't expect me to do anything like that, but you're being
Okay.
very flexible and I appreciate it. Go ahead and bring that one up for me.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So what we're describing for our folks that are on the call here is this timeline that might be 60 minutes long from
Okay.
0 to 60. And I like to think about it like this bell curve where you have a bump in the middle. And is that moment there, that's at the peak of your talk. It's that moment where everyone is like, oh man, this is the best talk. What happened there? Did you make a point there? Did you put a demo there at the peak? Is the
Yeah.
peak of your talk at 30 minutes? And then as you're
Okay.
making these points, you want to circle back and circle back and circle back multiple times. So I like to create multiple acts. I have act 1, act 2,
Okay.
act 3, and an
Yeah.
act might have, a couple of 10-minute points and a couple of 10-minute points and a couple of 10 minutes points. And right there you can see at the bottom I've got act 1 is 20 minutes, act 2 is
Okay.
20 minutes, act 3 is 20 minutes, 10 minutes
Oh,
each. Maybe it's like slides and demo,
okay.
slides and big demo, and then
Yeah.
slides and finale. And then I
Okay.
come back and I have to actually reinforce these moments where I'm going like this. I'm
Yes.
reinforcing that time, that highlighted
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Sorry, I want to just ask you a question.
Yes, of course.
When do you know when you have gotten to the peak?
Feeling it, you feel it in your chest, because what's the
Yeah.
point, right? Like
Yeah.
I gave, like let's actually do this. You were at my talk in London, weren't you? You were at my
Yes,
talk
I
on
was.
AI. Okay.
Yeah.
Did it fit this structure? And what did you think the peak was?
I think I don't really know where the peak was, but it was like a discussion. It was funny.
Okay,
It
that's good.
I think it was different from other presentation I have seen,
Okay.
and I was surprised that you were not just you was presenting, you were presenting with someone, and the flow was really really nice. So yeah,
Okay. So I'm writing this down. Funny and
yeah,
flow. That's good.
yes,
This is good.
yeah,
This is good tips here. Right.
yeah.
And did you come out with a takeaway? Did you come out afraid of AI? Did you come out empowered by AI? Did you come out informed?
I think I came out mind blown.
Mind blown. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I did.
here's you over here, and then your mind is blown.
Yeah,
Right. You came out feeling some kind of way.
yeah,
So to the answer for Thomas, and to use folks like Luella and Ryan, who are offering us tips here in the chat. Luella says
yeah,
she's got points of interaction. She's got questions and jokes and things like that. They'll
yes,
stick in the customers' minds. Ryan makes a great point where he says you make your presentation personal,
yeah,
right? So I used my wife as an example. I used conversations with my family as an example,
yeah,
and how my family felt about the AI.
yes,
I really like stories when you're talking about how you use something at work and how it
okay,
feels at work, how your customers feel, how your
yeah,
coworkers feel. What you
okay,
don't want is a conversation where you're talking down at people and you're like,
yeah,
I have the knowledge and I'm here to give you all the knowledge, right?
yeah,
So I
sure,
try to structure it like this picture here that I brought up on the screen. So for
okay,
folks that maybe are listening to this on audio, you can go over and check it out on Rachel's YouTube and
yeah.
see our fun live demonstration there.
Yeah, and I think I have a question to ask you. There's something you mentioned. You mentioned sales. Like, how do you sell your presentation?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm always selling power, meaning
Yes.
to empower. I want to
Okay.
empower people who have less power. And I'm also
Yeah.
trying to sell enthusiasm and fun,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So from my perspective, I'm not sure if they have this. You said that you were in Malta right now. Um,
Yes.
every country is different, but do you have people who knock on the door and maybe want to convert you to their religion? Do they have that
Eh,
there? Well, you know
no,
what I'm
in
talking
what?
about? Have you
Yeah,
heard
I
the
know.
news?
We have it in Nigeria, but we don't have it in
Okay.
Malta.
So
Yeah.
so let's think about that. Like there are people who are so excited about their topic that they will
Yeah.
knock on your door and convert you. Now, I don't want to be converted, but I'm
Okay.
excited. This is a different way of thinking. I could be like, "Oh, these
Yeah.
people no, how great that they are excited. I am so
Yeah.
happy for them that they are excited."
Yeah.
So I love
Definitely.
it when people are excited about their topic. Whatever the
Okay.
topic, I don't care. I just want to know that you're excited because you're knocking on my door and you're saying, "Have you heard the news
Yeah.
about Power Platform? Have you heard the news
Yeah.
about .NET?" Like whatever you're excited about, right? I love that for you. And
Yeah.
people feel that when you give a presentation, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. When you're excited about your topic, definitely people that are listening to you, they are going to feel that excitement. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Maybe now that I've stopped changing my screen there, you could put us back in our change our scene. This is a great
Yeah.
tool that you're using for your show here.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, Teamer makes a great point here about, which is a good question for I think for both of us. How
Yeah.
do you maybe feel like you don't know the topic well enough to present in public, right? Like, what if someone asks you
Yeah.
a question and you're not the expert?
Yeah, I think that is scary, especially when you are preparing for a presentation and you be like, okay, what if I'm asked this question? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the point is if you are trying to present yourself as the expert, I
Yeah.
invented the thing. Recognize
Yeah.
that even that person maybe not doesn't know that stuff. I talked
Yeah.
to the gentleman who invented Python,
Okay.
and I asked him if he was a Python expert.
Yeah.
Right? I said, Guido, you invented Python. Are you an expert? And he's like, oh no, there's people who know Python way better than me.
Wow.
That's a
Wow.
very healthy attitude. That's a very
Yeah.
modest attitude because you can't know everything. I love that
Yeah,
Ryan calls
definitely.
out being able to say, I don't know is a superpower. This can be really
Yes.
challenging.
Yes.
I'm curious, as an earlier in career person, do you feel if you say, I don't know, people will just like flip the bit on you? Like, oh, well, and then
Yeah.
they will dismiss you.
No, I think no. Like Ryan has said, it's actually fine to when you say I don't know, like the question you
Mm,
have asked. I think it depends on the way you approach it. Like when you are asked the question, you can say I don't know, but I'll definitely research on this and maybe you can follow me online and I'll
yeah,
get back to you on it.
that is the perfect chef's kiss. That's perfect. That's a great
Yeah,
example because you say, I don't know, but I will get back to you and I'll find out. Or
yeah,
I'm only 10 years in my journey learning Power Platform. I don't know the
yeah,
exact question. I haven't hit that problem before, but I'll
yeah,
find out and I'll let you know.
yeah. It's totally fine not to know everything. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
totally fine.
absolutely.
Yeah. And if you have any more questions, please don't forget to ask your questions.
I
So,
appreciate the folks that have spent time with us on the chat. It's so comforting to have
yeah,
friends, and I can see some folks on YouTube and some folks on Twitter,
yeah,
all offering their questions. So thank you for our friends that are online
yeah.
spending time
Thank
with
you.
us today.
And we have 3,006 viewers. So yeah, that's amazing. And I think I have another question to ask. I think you have said a lot about public speaking, how to get started,
Hmm.
how it affects our career, and also how it affects us personally with confidence, being able to communicate clearly. But there's one thing I want to point out too. I've seen a lot of persons where they talk about personal branding,
Mm.
like you talk about personal branding. So how does public speaking help our personal branding?
I have mixed feelings about that, and
Yeah,
even now, as I'm about to tell you, I don't think you should worry about your personal brand. I will remind you to put our
yeah.
names back at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, sure.
Uh, so I was on a podcast recently, and someone asked me how much one should worry about their personal brand. I think there's
Okay.
basic stuff like be kind,
Yeah,
right? Uh, you know,
definitely.
be kind is a good thing. Don't be rude online. But
Yeah,
people who are spending too much time on their personal brand makes me sad. Like
yeah,
be a
sure.
person before you're a brand. I'm not
Exhausting.
actually trying to sell you anything. I just want you to
Yeah.
be happy, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? I don't like the time that focus.
Yeah, I think just be yourself and have fun. Yeah, be yourself and have fun.
I
And just
see
do the things you like.
a friend just came. Someone just came from South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hi.
Unjani Bud, Unjani.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I just think people focus too much on
Yeah.
how they're perceived because then they're just flexing online, like trying to go on doing it for the gram, like you mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, doing it for the gram. Doing it for likes.
I am not doing it for any. I don't need your likes. I don't like.
Yeah.
This is really hard. This gets back to deliberacy, like deliberate practice. Do
Yeah.
you need something from the social media? Do you need something? Do you need business?
No.
Do you need
No.
a better job? Those are valid things to need. But if you
Yeah,
go there
definitely true.
for validation, I
I
think that's
think,
going to be a problem.
yeah, I think going for validation is very wrong
Yeah,
because it creates the wrong mindset. Going for validation is very wrong. Creates the wrong mindset. The goals you have set for yourself changes. It automatically changes. Maybe you have the goal that okay, I want to grow. I want to grow myself. I want to work on my journey. I have this particular goal set. I have these particular goals set for myself. But when you are seeking for validation, everything changes automatically. Yeah.
yeah. I'm being teased by Chuma Memela on the chat here because my wife speaks Ndebele, which is Southern Ndebele from Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
and he
Okay.
teasing me for my. I sometimes I say things in Ndebele, which is the different language than Zulu. So like
Okay.
Linjani instead of Kunjani and Unjani instead of. So hey to my fellow countrymen there, Chuma Memela,
Yeah.
for keeping me honest as I continue to
Yeah.
learn Zulu.
Yeah.
What
That's nice.
language do
And I
they
think
speak in Malta, by the way? I'm curious.
they speak Motis.
Maltese. So you have to learn
Yeah.
Maltese now?
I, maybe very soon. Yeah. I'm not very good with learning languages. I just learn it halfway and I stop. I learn it halfway, I stop. Yeah,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah. I feel like that. I feel like that as I try to learn
Yeah,
my wife's language.
yeah. And I think I have another question to ask you. Do you have any advice for our listeners? Apart from this topic we're just discussing about, do you have any advice that you love to share?
I think the biggest and most important thing is to slow down.
Yeah.
There's just too many people are up at midnight looking on the infinite feed, trying to find something. You're not going to find it on Instagram. You're not going to find it on TikTok. You have to
Yeah.
be right with yourself. So I think the people that we end up following are okay. And if you're not okay, you should talk to
Yeah.
family and friends and get okay. But I see a lot of people burn out trying to make 2 videos
Yeah.
a week,
Yeah.
or
Sure.
like you've got to be okay offline before you can present yourself
Online.
online. And I know that's a tough thing to
Yeah.
say, and it comes from a place of privilege because I'm okay, but I
Yeah.
want people to be okay. And
Yeah.
I worry that a lot of folks are maybe too too connected.
Yeah. And I think one thing too, being able to know when to step back.
I love that. 100%
Yeah.
agree. Like just saying, I'm going to disconnect for the week. I don't want to be
Yes.
online. I like to say airplane mode works on the ground.
Yeah.
Just go into airplane mode. It's totally
Yeah.
normal. Totally normal. Hey,
Yes.
great question from Power Thomas there. Can we grab that
Yeah.
one real quick?
So he said, how do you tailor your message to different types of audience?
So true story. You just mentioned at the beginning of at the top of the hour that
Yeah.
you saw me in London during the Build AI tour. I have to give that
Yeah.
same talk in South Korea in a month.
Okay. Yeah.
Should I do the same talk?
I think they were not there, so yes, definitely.
Well, but but
No,
but this is the
no,
question: does the British audience have the same
no,
concerns that the South Korean
no.
audience has?
I think I attended a presentation training recently,
Hmm.
and they spoke about different types of audience, knowing their culture, and so different things play into the type of audience you want to present to. So no, you're going to give it differently. Yeah.
Exactly. Being culturally aware of the audience. Now, Power Thomas is not saying culture, but culture's
Yeah.
implied. Culture's implied. I'm not talking about the
Yeah.
country culture. What if I went
Yeah.
to speak at Walmart? They have a
Okay.
culture, right? London has a culture. Microsoft has a culture. Google has a culture. Malta has a
Yeah.
culture. So
Yeah.
I could just show up and I could do the same talk that I did in London, and it would
Yeah.
be fine. And I put that in air quotes. So if folks are
Yeah.
listening on the podcast, they can hear the quotes. It'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
But you said that you're from Nigeria originally. Would your
Yes.
mom be okay with you coming home with an 82% on a test?
Um, she doesn't mind. Yeah, she
She's not
doesn't
going to
mind.
say go back and get that 90% or that 95%.
No, no, no. I think it was more of when I was in my earlier stage of school. Hey, yeah, she can say stuff like that, but yeah,
Right.
she doesn't
So I
mind.
don't want to go and do 82%. I don't want to go to all the way to Korea, do
Yeah,
the same talk and have it be fine. So I'm going
yeah.
to tailor the message to that audience. What do they care about? What do they think
Okay.
about? And also, who am I in that context?
Yeah,
So in the example of Korea, not everyone's going to speak fluent English and they'll have translators.
yeah,
Should
that's
my
true.
demos be done in Korean? Should I double
Okay.
check all of my demos? Are there
Yeah.
things that Koreans care about in their society that I don't care about that
Okay.
affects how we think about the product, about AI? And then
Yeah.
what does it mean for me to fly from America? Am I
Yeah.
trying to present myself as the expert? Oh, I flew from America and I'm an expert. But I
Yeah.
appreciated your compliment that you gave me when you said that when you saw my talk in London, you felt that it was a conversation.
Yeah. It was.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
try to present as I recognize that I'm from the States. I
Yeah.
understand that it's weird that I flew all this way and I'm talking to a bunch of Koreans about uniquely Korean issues, which is they have a different writing system, they have a different language, they have different
Yeah.
concerns, right?
Yes.
And then what locals in Korea can I include in my talk,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
Because like if
Yeah.
I was actually so Chuma came in from South Africa.
Yeah.
I was in South Africa talking about AI. Probably should find South Africans to talk about AI, right? There's really cool work
Yeah.
happening on the continent. Like
Yeah.
there's a great company called Lelapa AI, and the
Okay.
CEO is a woman named Pelanomi Moloa. She's working
Okay.
on African AI for African problems with African languages.
Yeah.
So to Power Thomas's excellent point here, different culture and knowledge and experience. So
Yeah.
coming with that sense of I'm in your house,
Yes.
I want to respect your house. I'll take off my shoes at the door. I'm going to talk about different stuff. Is a great way of respecting your audience. So lovely question
Yeah,
from Thomas. Thank you for that.
yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's something I want to ask concerning the culture. Do you have to research about this? Like, how do you go about your research? Do you ask questions? How
Oh
do you
yeah.
go about this? Yeah,
I'm going to run every joke, every
yeah.
idea, every demo by multiple locals.
Wow,
Right? You want to
that's really
get
nice.
you got to get
Yeah,
a double check. You got to make sure, is this going to land? Is this what they want to hear?
yeah,
You know, in Korea, as an example, they're going to have an elder person in charge open the event, which is part of their
yeah.
culture. You know, they're going to have like a local country manager. I'm going to do a bunch of the demos in Korean. I'll try to. I've been learning Korean on my phone for a number
That's
of weeks here. Like little things to just make
that's
sure that
really
you don't just
dedicative.
roll
Yeah,
in and
that's
start slapping people around. I'm here from America.
yeah.
Talk about AI.
My name is Kat.
Yeah, that's not what that would be disrespectful. But the
Yeah,
same thing would apply if I went to Walmart or Google or whatever. I want to learn their culture. So you talk to a native, talk to a local.
yeah. I think this is a very, very good advice, and I have never thought about it. Yeah. So
Well,
thank you so
here's a
much.
question. What if I was invited to come talk to the Power Platform folks, right?
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
like those are different people. It's a different culture than my culture. If I came to talk about
Yeah.
.NET to Power people. So I
Yeah.
would
I
call
think it's
you and I
different.
would call Power Thomas.
Yeah. It's different. Yeah. Definitely. And I think okay. What
Oh,
are you beating
this
on
is great.
Instagram?
Chuma. So my brother Bongani is actually doing the same thing. He's finding that South Africa does not have like a deep understanding in the computer science area around data
Yeah.
analytics and how to apply machine learning and stuff to AI. And
Yeah.
you know, the regular people, the rank and file, can be educated on that. So I think that's a killer idea. He's actually
Yeah.
presenting on machine learning to his company in Johannesburg. So there's a lot of
That's
value in
awesome.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Small
That's
world.
awesome. Yeah. Definitely. And part of us has responded. Really cool. Yeah, because it is. Yeah. And I don't have any other questions.
Cool.
And yeah, I don't know if we have any other questions in the comments. Like, if there's anybody who has any question, if you are listening, do you have any question you would love to ask? Like, Scott is here, he's ready to answer
Yeah,
our
let's do
questions.
our last question or two, and then I'm going to go for a walk. And you
Yeah.
need to go to bed because it's midnight in Malta.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Just going to wait 2 minutes more to
It's so
see if
funny,
we
all
have
these
any
questions on the chat. People are asking you if you have a brother named Jordan.
Me? No, I
There's
don't.
a apparently there's a composer in Texas named Jordan Irabor, and he
No.
follows me on Twitter. So folks are asking if you're his relative. Is
No,
this a
I'm not.
common last name?
Yes, it's a common last name in Nigeria.
Ah,
Yeah, it is.
yeah. There's only my last name's not so common. So if you meet someone, they're probably my brother.
Yeah, if I say anyone, I'm just going to ask, are you related to Scott?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been super fun. I love that you invited me on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing so much and sharing and also answering every questions we had. Yeah, it was awesome.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you very much for everyone joining. I think I have hit the like we have 3,936 viewers right now, and that's amazing. Thank you. Yeah. So thank you everyone. Bye. And see you in the next podcast.